Good afternoon. It is Monday, February 7th, 2022 at 4 p.m. and we'd like to welcome everybody to the Ottawa City Commission study session. We'll start with public comments. Do we have anybody registered?
We have none registered.
Thank you. That'll move us on to the items to be placed on the regular City Commission agenda, which includes the minutes from the January 24th study session and the January 31st study session. Commissioners, did you have a chance to look over all that? Any questions or any comments?
There was one correction. It seemed like a couple times Ms. Landis was referred to as Mr. Landis, but a minor little deal there, so the R
Well,
and
it
S
actually
are
is
pretty
major.
close. Huh?
It's pretty major,
Well,
actually. I mean,
in real life it is, yes, but our minutes, no.
Get that corrected.
Any, go ahead.
I actually have one additional correction, and I don't know necessarily that we need to make this correction, but on our January 31st minutes, and it goes further into the rural opportunity zone, there is a line that says the net impact to the city of Ottawa will equate to a maximum of $9,000 per year for the next 5 years. And while I agree that that statement is correct, but yeah, it is the maximum amount. I mean, there's quite up to a maximum of $9,000 per year, because we don't know that we'll spend that much. We certainly hope we will, but we don't know that we will.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Oh, good.
We okay to move that on to the regular agenda?
Yep.
All right, thank you. That'll move us on to items for presentation and discussion, which item number one, we're going to have a continued discussion of the floodplain regulation amendment with Jennifer Reinhardt. Good afternoon, Jennifer. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well, enjoying the sunshine.
For
Pleased
sure.
to join you here today. So just a quick update on where we are with these floodplain regulation amendments. As I briefed this honorable body at the first study session, this is a requirement for the city of Ottawa to enact the amended floodplain ordinances that meet new state and federal requirements. This is required in order for the city to remain eligible to participate in the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program. The deadline to amend the regulations is March 8th, and the failure to comply would be removal from the program, which means no more, or there would not be the option to obtain flood insurance. So pretty severe if this deadline is not met. After our discussion, I did include the map, the updated map, which is included in the materials before you this afternoon, which indicate which areas are new and which areas are going to be removed. And this is the map that will be in effect on March 8th. So we have scheduled a public hearing on February 16th. It has met the 20-day notice publication requirement. And so we're here today for continued discussion. If there are any questions, or with the proposed language, any questions for me, or if at this point it's perhaps ready to go before the state engineer, because they will have to review and approve the language before your honorable body can take action on approving the amendments.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, do you have the ability to put that map up on your screen?
I'll try. Last time there were some complications, but yes, let me navigate to that and then share my screen, and hopefully it will work. Is that coming through?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, so yes, this is, and again, this is the or the large view of the city, and more detailed, specific area map aerials are available in the community development department. But this is the overall map that I did want to share with this honorable body. So red are the areas that FEMA is adding. green are existing that are currently in the floodplain that are being removed. And yellow is the same or staying constant.
Commissioners, any questions for Jennifer?
Jennifer, I'm looking at the map, I can't quite see the details, but that Keokuk and Main Street, looks like a couple of red spots on each side of the road. That's new for March 8th, is that right? The red?
Yes, that
Okay.
will be new, correct.
And I can't really tell, I mean, the detail, I can't quite see enough. Does that include the buildings on those corners, or what?
So I would have, because this is, I'd have to pull the detailed map to answer that
Okay.
it more clearly. So now that, so is it just that area that you would like additional information, or are there additional areas that you would like for me to look at the detailed map and
Okay.
find the answer?
Yeah, I just know we had some flooding in that intersection a couple of years ago, and I just didn't know if that must be determined to be a new flood zone, so I just was curious of that, but, okay, thank you.
And I appreciate you asking that, Commissioner Skidmore, because it does appear that there are some other kind of larger portions, at least in the southern part of our city, that are going to be added to the floodplain. And I don't think it would hurt for us to have some more intimate knowledge about those actual locations that are around the I-35 corridor. It looks like there's some spots that will be added there too. And I recognize, I mean, community development could get those and just kind of narrow them down for us and let us know where those looking. And there appears to be some space there in the middle of the map on the east side of Maine. They're going to be added to.
What I can do is I will go through, and for all of the new areas, I will have kind of maybe a synopsis memo that outlines, the new areas and more information about these, these areas that will be newly added to the floodplain map. So I'll prepare that memo.
And Jennifer, do you happen to know, and this is not at all your responsibility, but do you know individuals who will be impacted by being added to the floodplain zone? Were they notified in some manner that would be occurring?
I don't know right now. I believe that a list of addresses was provided by the state to the former planner, so I can go through the records and confirm if notification has been sent and if that would have been by the state or through the city. I will look into that as well.
Right, because the city didn't have any direct impact into what was being added. It was not a city function, correct?
Correct. This was led by FEMA and the state as part of their periodic, updating of maps. And I don't recall when the last map was, but I think every 5 to 10 years is when this process occurs. But it is not city-led, to get to your question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Were the red marks, like Mike asked about Keokuk and Maine, were those a result of the rains a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 Augusts ago? We had 9 or 10 inches of rain at night. I know it's flooded heavily. Did that change the floodplain, or is this just something to be expected in not necessarily an unusual flooding, but as being a floodplain permanently now?
Sure. So I believe that definitely factored into this new map, but I know that FEMA has their own process and standards for what qualifies to extend the boundaries. So certainly if these areas did get prior rains, that kind of was a consideration, but I know that there are other, with elevations and some other considerations that went as well to influence the map being changed.
And Jennifer, just to kind of clarify what Commissioner Wygon was asking, I think there's a little bit of interference there, just for clarification. He was just asking if the rainfalls from a couple years ago affected whether this was going to be a flood zone or not, correct?
I believe so. Again, I can't speak. I wasn't here for that process, but I do believe that, areas that are prone to flooding are, subject to that review, but that's not the only, my point is that's not the only criteria for being added to this map.
Thank you. Now, I believe the last discussion we had with the red areas that you have here that are added to the floodplain, and I may be wrong here, but I believe you mentioned that with all these additions, there's really only one address that's affected by it. Am I correct there?
I did mention that, but I'm still going through the records of the office, and so I did not locate that yet to update this body today. But I will attempt to find that, and I'll include that with the memo for these new areas in which addresses are affected. But I believe that is the case, but I don't have verification at this moment.
Thank you. And as the other commissioners asked for, I think it'd be great information to have now that we've seen the map. It seems to me like with all the red areas that there'd be more than one, but could be wrong.
It also looks to me like some of that up on North Street in the industrial park, that maybe those duplexes were built on this new flood area. Does that get into them, or is that around them?
If I could defer to, I don't know if anyone else from or Terry, if you're able to, I'm not certain of the location in question myself off the top of my head.
Okay.
This is Terry Elmer, Chief Building Official. Can you repeat that, your question?
Well, up on North Street, where, the pickup cover, I always forget the name of that, but cover plant, and then where those new duplexes were built a couple years ago, it looks like the floodplain gets into them pretty heavily or closely. Is that true?
Yes, the new floodplain does come in right on the edge, right there at Cherry Street, and I believe this Prairie Fire subdivision development.
Right.
It does appear that it kind of comes in and touches the kind of the northwestern edge of that development.
Yeah, right up to Lincoln School and everything up in there. Okay. Well, you think those duplexes will have to buy flood insurance now?
On that, I'm not quite certain, Tom, if they would have to, how that would work or how that's going to impact that development.
Okay, thank you.
I can include information about that in the memo of, for these new addresses, kind of options for the insurance to clarify what'll be asked of them.
Commissioners, any other questions for Jennifer or Terry?
Commissioner Kaler speaking. While I appreciate all that additional information, and I do appreciate truly any more clarifying information you can give, this body really doesn't have authority to really make a change. Even if we were given addresses and we disputed we don't have the authority to make changes. So it doesn't appear to me as though we have any capacity to actually force change, but our responsibility is to acknowledge that we have received them and seen them and approve them as they have been designated.
Thank you, Commissioners. Richard Neinstead, City Manager. Thank you for that, Commissioner Kaler, because the unfortunate thing about this is that the big decision you have to make, are we going to be a part of the program, continue to be a part of it, or not? And if you say no, that has a direct fiscal impact upon our citizens that might be in a floodplain or that they wind up in one and need to buy flood insurance. So thank you for those.
Well, and I was going to say, we certainly have an option. We can say no, but then nobody can get flood insurance. So we certainly don't want to put them in that position either. So, Commissioners, any other questions? Well, I would think that since we've asked for more information, that we gather that information, get it back to us, and have another discussion.
Okay.
How does everybody feel?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I'd like to have the information. I just don't know that there's a tremendous amount that we can discuss. I mean, I think it really needs to, I wonder if it just doesn't need to be put on the agenda. I mean, we certainly have time. We could visit with it, on Valentine's Day, which is be awesome. I love flooding. No. But, I mean, that information will be good, but, I mean, the reality of it is we need to move it forward.
Well, and we have the public hearing the 16th, so, I mean, I would say that, if there's any comments at the public hearing, maybe we can revisit this the 21st. Because we have till the 8th of March, I believe, to adopt the amended ordinance, so.
That's fine.
Prior to the May.
Yeah.
Yep, right.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Bringing it back to 21st?
Sure.
Any comments on the public hearing? We'll hear from them. I'm sorry, 16th.
Oh, yeah, I was like, the 16th?
The 16th is the public hearing, so we'll just, anything that's been brought up on the 16th, if there is anything, would just be part of the information that's brought back to us the 21st. And then we could have another discussion then.
We'd like to pass it on the 16th if at all
Yep.
possible.
Yeah, if I may, Jennifer, they almost are in a position that this has to be passed on the 16th, right? Because our deadline is March 8th.
So, through the chair, the requirement for the public hearing, that was the earliest with the notification, but I believe the city commission is not held to act on the 16th, but just as long as it is enacted and, it can be sent to the state for verification by the 8th. So it is a bit tight, but I don't believe the commission is required to take action on the 16th. The time sensitivity was for the public hearing notice.
What time's your public hearing, the 16th? Oh, it's ours, ain't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's,
yeah.
okay. So we could, I mean, if you feel like we need to push it through at that point, I mean, like we've mentioned, there's nothing really that can, outside of maybe some public comment that could change.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I wonder if we could just have the information that was requested to us and put that agenda item in advance of the public hearing on the 16th meeting, so then we can review that and then open that public hearing and hear from the public if they have questions, concerns, or questions, comments, or concerns regarding the map, and then move forward if we are able to do so.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we do have one more study session on the 14th too,
Sure.
so, yeah, it's plenty of time.
We good with that?
I'm good.
Staff, thank you. All right, Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll move us on to item 2. Continue discussion of the Kansas Rural Opportunity Zone Program. Rachel Rowan from the Kansas Commerce Department and Michelle Wapp will update us on that.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Michelle Wapp, HR Director. I do have Rochelle Rowland from the Kansas Department of Commerce here to further present the item from last week, the Kansas Rural Opportunities Zone Student Loan Repayment Program. And the recommendation was to implement this since the Franklin County had implemented the program, passed a resolution. The city of Ottawa can become an employer sponsor. And this obviously was not budgeted for 2022, but we could, if we had at least up to 6 candidates, we could, the net impact would be up to $9,000 per year, which would be funded from vacancies and savings from the different funds where a candidate would be recruited from. And as you know, we've, like other employers in Ottawa and throughout Kansas and throughout the United States, have had challenges backfilling our positions. And I'm going to let Rachel continue on with the presentation, if that'd be
Sure,
great.
thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon,
Hi.
Rachel.
Can you hear me okay?
Sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I have the same presentation that I had last week. So I wasn't sure if you guys just wanted follow-up questions or you want me to go through it again, or if there were certain slides you wanted me to show. How would you like this to go?
Commissioners, anything you'd like to see for certain from Rachel, or any questions you have for her or Michelle?
I don't.
This is Commissioner Kaler. I have just one question. I know that you had included in your presentation the 2019 county funding levels, which I want to make sure that I understand that. That is the allocation that they had set aside for employees if they should be eligible to take advantage of this funding, which in the closest one to us would be Coffee County. But it doesn't actually show how many employees actually took advantage of that.
No, ma'am, you're not seeing that correctly. That is for county sponsorships. That is the money that the county has put in for first come, first serve. That is not for employees only. That is for any person moving to that county is eligible to go into that funding. It was my understanding we were talking about employer sponsorship through the city, and that doesn't have those funding levels.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but I guess what I'm asking is that were there 2 employees from Coffee County that took advantage of this funding source
And
in 2019?
like that were employed by Coffee County?
No, that were part of the county funding in Coffee County. I'm just using the county that's closest to us. I was just trying to figure out what kind of utilization.
Understood. Okay, so they may not have been employees of any kind. They could have been a spouse of somebody who moved into that county. They don't have to have a job to reach that funding. They just have to move there and have a degree.
Okay, so it's not funds that were set aside, it's funds that are actually utilized.
No, those are funds that are set aside on that map. So the county has decided, like Franklin County, I think you guys are at
7,500.
7,500. So that is what the county has set aside to encourage people to move in. That's not necessarily what they used. The counties can fluctuate on how much they want to put in each year, so it kind of changes. They can do less one year or more the next. It doesn't change what they owe us for the participants that were already in the program because they're designated for 5 years.
So that goes back to, it appears as though there are some counties around us that are now eligible, and that in 2019 they were eligible. So did Coffee County have participants in 2019?
Give me 1 second. I will pull up Coffee County's information. I'm gonna have to grab their report to go back to 2019. Everything's updated to 2022.
Well, and I certainly will take that information too. I guess I'm trying to figure out what kind of utilization we have around our community, or that communities that are closer to us.
Yeah. So Coffee County did not do a resolution last year. So, and they haven't sent me a resolution yet for this year. 2019, they did have 2 people who were still being funded in 2019.
Are there other counties near us, like Anderson County or Lynn County, that would be taking advantage of this?
Oh, let me pull up the Ross map real quick. And I'm actually going down to Chinook tomorrow to talk to your region about Ross. Okay. So in your area is really new, with Osage is new too. Anderson's been in for a while, but they usually don't fund. Linda's the same way. Miami just became eligible for the program, and I know that the county didn't put money in, but they have a lot of employer sponsors reaching out to us. So that's where the difference comes in that funding level, is employer sponsors are different than a county or a city direct sponsorship. But if the city is acting as an employer, it would be the HR department who decides who's eligible for that or not to receive that grant funding, as long as they meet the requirements of the ROS program and statute to get their application passed by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? If not, how would you like to proceed with this item?
It sounds like a good program. I can't see any reason why we wouldn't want to participate, so I'd be in favor of moving it on to our regular city commission meeting on the 16th.
I would agree.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Michelle, Rachel, thank you very much. We'll move it on to the February 16th agenda.
Thank you, Mayor and
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
That will move us on to item 3, the continued discussion of the solar project. Dennis, I guess you'll start again.
I will. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We are back. We have not created a specific presentation for you today. We have been through several iterations of what this solar project looks like. And I believe that we are more than ready to answer any questions that you have today. And then I believe that we are at a point where we need to talk about making a decision one way or the other. We talked about the MOU that we need to sign with Evergy that has been reviewed by our legal, and they have signed off on that. And at this point, we are ready to try to resolve any questions you have and ready for y'all to make a decision. So fire away.
Commissioners, any questions for Dennis?
Mayor Crowley, I'll start out first. Last week, Dennis and the individuals that you brought to the table answered all of my questions, and I am in favor of moving it forward. I hate that Paul drove all the way here just to hear me say that, but I'm for moving it forward.
Well, and I am sorry, I was remiss. Both Lindsay Freeman from Evergy and Paul Malberg from KMEA are here. I think that, quite honestly, that shows their belief in this project, that they showed up in person to help answer any questions. And as I've said before, staff has looked at this kind of project for really the last 5 years. And this is the first time that we've got excited about coming to you and trying to move something forward.
I've got a question on the leased land that we've been talking about. Now, this is a 35-year project. Is this lease price locked in for the full 35 years?
The lease, as we had discussed with the landowner, is a 25-year, and I have a thought about that myself, that probably we would be better to talk about a 35. But it was built with a 2% escalator.
After 25 years?
Per year, not after 25 years,
From year
but
one?
per year.
Okay. And so 2.5%, right?
2%.
2% on the land, okay.
And we can build that. That will actually be built by our legal department. And we can build out however the commission would see fit.
Okay. Okay, let me add some other questions here. Let me get to those here.
We do have some examples of leases that Evergy has done in the past, I believe. Is that correct, Lindsay? That we can work with, but we can build this in a negotiation with the landowner.
Okay, all right. And then on page 60 of the, well, it's the economics on it, which I'm interested in. It talks about the 30-year PPA. I see the 2.5 point escalation. It shows 5 megawatts, 39.75. Now, is that what the cost would be to us to produce this power?
The 39.75 would be the cost of the energy that was produced.
Okay, and that includes all the expenses on this, right?
That is figuring in maintenance costs and everything that we could incur. Now, there again, is that gonna be exact? My take on that would be probably not.
Okay.
You know, do we know for sure? There again, that's a crystal ball thing.
Yeah.
Knowing for sure exactly what's going to happen, but judging from what history we have,
Right.
we believe that is a very good estimate.
Okay. And then, but that includes the lease on the land as well? I
It
mean,
did include
does.
the lease,
Okay,
yes.
everything on there. Okay, good. And then I guess my question too is in the general sense of when we look at the pie-shaped chart of all of our current power, and if we did not do this, is there any way to increase more power from Dogwood, Buckeye, Marshall, Wapak? I mean, any of these have availability for us to increase this 5 megawatts if we do not do this?
I'm going to bring Paul up as part of this question. What you're asking, Commissioner, is absolutely true. KMEA, that's what they do for us. We have a very diverse portfolio now, and I believe as we move forward, there is very, very real possibility that we could buy some more of the products you're talking about. But I also believe that there are going to be other products out there, and I'm going to let Paul kind of speak to that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so first of all, again, you have one of the most diverse portfolios in our membership. So
Good.
kudos to Dennis and Richard and the commissions prior to you guys for putting together a nice portfolio. So yeah, you know, we're continuing looking at future options, especially for our cities that have that GRDA piece.
Yeah.
So that expires in 2026, mid-year 2026. So we're currently looking at other options for our members, for those folks that have that GRDA. And I'll just tell you, solar is one of the things that we are suggesting, not to completely replace GRDA, but a piece of it should be solar. We're continuing to look at some new wind opportunities for the cities that have that interest. And then we are looking at, I'll just go back to the old fossil fuel spinning type generation, smaller diesel, that can be diesel, natural gas fired to bring in some new generation for folks. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. The dogwood, there's probably some opportunity if you would want more dogwood that we could go back to that plant. But those are some of the things that we're focused in on right now is solar, wind, and some smaller diesel type generation for options. We will be looking at GRDA as also to renegotiate and bring an opportunity of a similar product. Hopefully we could get a little bit better pricing out of GRDA, again, just as a potential option. So there's always those purchase PPA, purchase power agreement options that are always out there. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Okay. And as far as the cost of, I call it cost of goods sold, I'm always looking at that in business. And so when we look at cost of goods sold on all these different ones here that we've listed here, how does the solar generation fit into that?
So it's hard to compare apples to apples. Solar, you get it when the sun's shining.
Yeah.
You look at a gas-fired power plant, you get it when you need it,
Right.
turn it on. So it's kind of hard to compare those. I will tell you, we really believe solar at the pricings that we're seeing is a really good thing to put into place. It'll be a stable price for the next 30-some years,
Yeah.
and it generates during the peak.
Right.
So today, looking at solar for what we call peaking energy, it's a really good price today.
Right there, okay. And I guess when we look at our solar, it's gonna be ours, I call it, I guess we're taking control a little bit more of the unpredictable aspects of all the others when we have some of our own generation right here. Is that a good way to summarize that?
Absolutely. There is some definite benefits to have your generation, this generation, tied to your system.
Yeah.
So you're not relying on the grid. And then actually, you know, this arrangement has the ability for you to purchase it after year 7,
Mhm.
which then again, ownership, there's some value in owning your assets.
And if we decide not to purchase it, we just continue on with the lease arrangement that we've got going at the current, well,
Yeah,
plus
that-
that 2.5.
Yeah, that $39 escalated at 2% a year. You can just stay with that purchase power agreement if you so choose.
Okay. And then, I guess it's also, are we allowing for increased usage if our town suddenly takes off and grows and Proximity Park fills up? And are we anticipating greater usage?
We will have all of those options available, and we continue to research those kinds of options. You know, depending on where we grow, depending on what happens. I think it's important, this 5 megawatts is really just 7% of our total load with this solar array. So being 7%, it still leaves us all kinds of options that we can look at as we move forward. This does not tie us down. You know, this just is an opportunity to start building what we want that portfolio to look like.
Yeah.
The options are endless. I think we talked a little bit about, you know, who knows, you know, methane. There's methane plants out there right now. There's hydrogen. There's small nuclear. There's all kinds of things going on. There's batteries out there that may develop into and be affordable at some point in time. So the possibilities with technology, do I have a crystal ball? No,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of stuff out there.
That's one thing I'm looking at too. I studied a little bit on this nuclear fusion, and of course this article I read, it talks about the holy grail of clean energy, and they think within maybe even 10 years they can put it in the size of a semi-truck trailer and produce 100 megawatts of power. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, 100 megawatts, wow, that's way more than we're going to need here. If we can put it in a semi-trailer somewhere, that's just amazing to think the
But it's,
potential.
and there again, KMEA comes into play.
Yeah.
Because if you start talking the municipals across Kansas, and we can tie that into transmission to where it's available to several different municipals, it's not out of the realm of possibility that something like that happens through KMEA, and several municipals buy into that type of power.
Yeah. Yep. But like you said, we don't know what we don't know, so, yeah. And I guess the difference on this one here too, I'm looking at the total cost of it, and I know we're going to own it, would be the plan. And anytime I have a farm customer, I always tell them it's always better if they could rent the land rather than own it, because there's a lot less upfront cost to make that happen. And so I'm looking at all of our other relationships, it's kind of like we rent part of that, but this would be something that we own. And I guess I'm a little scared of the total purchase price. Help me get away with my fears, Dennis. What can you
Well,
say?
I guess what I would tell you at that point, Commissioner, is that what we have setting at our power plant right now is worth about $1.2 million a megawatt today. That's probably not what was paid for it back when it was put in, but today, that generation is worth about $1.2 million a megawatt. There is about 18 megawatts of generation, functional generation, that has saved this community a lot of money over a period of time. That gives you an idea of what the cost is at that point in time. What we are paying here is actually less than that. There again, we're not talking, like Paul said, we're not talking apples to apples,
Yeah.
because solar generates when the sun shines. We're not storing anything, so it's only available when the sun shines. The fossil fuel is available when we decide to start it.
Yeah.
You know, as long as we have those fuels available.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you. Thanks, Dennis.
Dennis, this is Commissioner Kaler speaking, and I appreciate that you brought up the solar kind of project that we have at our facility here. And while that's a small project that we took on several years ago, that's a fixed array, correct?
It is.
So if it were different, then this particular solar project would produce more energy because it's able to move with the sun.
Absolutely.
But back when we put this solar project into place, that either was cost prohibitive for us to do it or something we chose not to do. So I appreciate that you talking about the data about what is available for us at the small solar production that we have here in the city. But this particular project is going to look different because it'll have better production capacity, correct?
Exactly. It will be a tracking array that does move with the sun to utilize the most potential that we can get out of the sun at that point in time. The other thing I think that's important there is we have some knowledge related to solar, and that is exactly the reason that we put the array out at the plant at that point in time. You know, we have had the ability to see what it takes to maintain that. We've had the ability to replace a couple of things so that we have developed some knowledge of what solar is and the things that we have to do to maintain solar. Now, are we ready to maintain a 5 megawatt array? No, we are not. But as I mentioned before, there are probably several options there, whether we look at doing something ourselves or whether through Mid-States, which is now a part of KMEA, that we're able to hire a person that does maintenance on several of these. You talked to Baldwin, that we know has an array. Osawatomie's talking array. Osage City is talking an array. You put those all together, you're able to hire one person to maybe maintain all of those at that point in time. And those conversations are already taking place.
Dennis, I'd sent an email to you and asked you a couple questions. I just want to, kind of go over a couple of them so we can make the public aware of kind of what I was asking. One of them was because I think everybody's thinking that, okay, we do the solar array and it immediately affects their bills. But that's not what we're looking at doing. Like you had mentioned, it's not affecting it higher or lower, it's just stabilizing the costs. Can you kind of elaborate on what you meant by that?
And that is absolutely true. As I said before, we're talking about 7% of our total load. The money that we're talking about, the cost of the energy that we're talking about here is what we are seeing for our overall costs with all of our products. This fits right into that mold. So this is not going to do anything to raise, nor is it going to do anything to lower our costs, but it is going to be something, as Paul said, that is going to be that same dollar amount for the next 30 or 35 years, however long we are able to maintain this and keep it running. So at that point, we are just stabilizing those costs that we have right now. Some of those costs, and we all know nothing is really staying the same, and we are going to see some energy costs probably that are higher than what we're talking about right here. We have just guaranteed ourselves by what we're talking about with this 5 megawatts that we will stay right there. That will be the cost of this.
Well, and certainly whatever we replace the 7% in our portfolio with if we do the solar, we know the costs are going to go up. Where, like you said, these are stable costs for the next 25 years.
Yes.
And then the other question I had was, so we go through this process, we put it in, and after 7 years, we have the ability to purchase it. What if we don't want to purchase it? And if so, does Evergy have the ability to sell to somebody else?
Lindsay, I'll let you talk to that. The one thing that I'm going to say before I bring Lindsay up is that we have no desire. We own our system. We own our distribution system. And we really have no desire to have anybody come in and put generation directly on our system. And then I'll let Lindsay speak to what it looks like as we go down the road.
Well, and if I may real quick, the reason I bring this question up is because we always bring up the question that we don't want to, burden the next commission with anything. So yeah, we may not want that, but what if, a commission in 7 years decides something differently? So I just want to, see where we're at with, does somebody have the right to purchase it? And if so, do they have the right to affect those numbers that we're looking at?
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Lindsay Freeman with Evergy. So our 30-year PPA agreement would be directly with you all. No one else would have the option to buy that out, as far as I'm aware. And I know Paul will go through your contract that you signed with us as well. KMEA is already looking at Osawatomie's agreement. So, if you want to make sure that no one has the option to buy that out, we can certainly spell that out in the contract.
Sure, I think that'd be important for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
And I got another question here. How much from the GRDA are we losing in April of '26 right now?
Excuse me. Overall, we do about 12 megawatts of GRDA.
Okay.
Now, we take more at different points in time and more or less at different points in time. But at present, we own 12 megawatts of GRDA.
And so that's all going away in '26?
That will all go away unless we negotiate something with GRDA that we're happy about.
Okay, I got you.
Right now, at the prices that we're looking at with GRDA, I don't think anybody's very happy about it.
Okay, all right.
Commissioners, any other questions? Dennis, what's the next step here? What are you looking for from us?
Well, Commissioners, I believe that we would, we would need your nod to go ahead and sign. I would hope that you would give our city manager the right to sign the MOU, which there again has been through the process, so to speak, and allow us to start the process. We will do a lease agreement with the landowner. We would probably do a short-term lease agreement, at least to start with the landowner. Like I said, some initial due diligence will be done at that point in time, some geotech, some initial engineering on what the array would look like, how it would fit into the footprint of the property that we're talking about. Again, that was capped at $15,000. We get to that point, and we will come back to the commission and talk about where we're at, what we believe works or doesn't work, and what we think we need to do then to move forward. But I think at this point in time, really, it's just the MOU, and allow us to move forward and see where it takes us.
Thank you. Commissioner, is everybody okay with giving city manager the ability to sign the MOU and moving forward?
I have a question. Remind me, Dennis, of how many acres are we talking about for this array?
40 acres.
And with options some more if we want to grow it or something.
We do not have options for more on this particular piece of property at this point in time. But we will continue to have those discussions if solar is something that works for us. But we have not discussed options for more property. Everything around this particular piece of property is currently is in crop.
Thanks.
And I guess at one time we talked about putting this in our industrial park, but if I understand it right, if I remember, the answer was that we don't want to use up some of our potential industrial park space where we could put a building in and bring employment if this would be in that place. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is exactly the decision that we heard when we talked initially about putting this directly in Proximity Park.
Okay.
Nobody really wanted to eat up 40 acres of saleable property.
Right.
To put it in Proximity Park.
I know we have options on land across the road to the east of the current Proximity Park. Any discussion on going forward with the purchase and putting it there, or is that also the same purpose? We want to keep that for industrial purposes.
I'm not sure I'm the person to fully answer that question at that point in time, but I would say that it is the same thing.
Okay.
I think all of that really is developable as a commercial, retail, whatever it might be that develops on well, you're talking about on the east side of the property. I'm sorry, I'm going to reroute my brain here.
Yeah.
That is where we are putting this array, is on the east side of Montana Road. It is almost dead center of that mile stretch between the Interstate 35 bridge and Kingman Road.
Oh.
That is what I was talking about. We will continue to have discussions. Is the owner going to be interested in doing more acreage this way?
Yeah.
I really can't answer that question at this
Okay.
point in time. We really have not had that discussion.
All right. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would, if we need a motion today, I'm happy to make a motion. If not, I'm fine with having it on the agenda on the 16th. It just all depends on kind of the urgency that the utility department is looking at. Dennis?
This is not an emergency. If you want this to go to a regular meeting, that is very fine.
I don't think we need, I mean, just for the MOU, I don't think we need a regular meeting. I think if you're willing to make a motion and we get a second and approval on the motion, I think we should move forward.
Before we do that, what would the MOU get us exactly, so I make sure I understand it?
Yeah, again, what that does is starts the initial geotech, which is looking at the land, what that looks like. We could begin to look at some initial grading that we might do internally. And then we will have some initial, Evergy will do the engineering on this project. And we would have some initial engineering as to how that's gonna work and what that's gonna look like on the footprint of this particular property.
Okay,
And again, that is capped at $15,000.
right.
Y'all have heard me talk about how far $15,000 goes in the utility industry.
Yeah.
So we are not gonna get a lot of work done, but this would get us off the ground.
I guess personally, I'd like a little bit more research. I'd rather have it on the 16th to have the decision rather than today. I don't know. I'm still on the fence on this thing. I guess I feel like I need to do some more research unless I'm just one vote. But if you proceed with that, I'm going to vote no on the MOU only because I just still want to do some more research on this.
No, I'll vote with you, Mike.
Go ahead.
I'm, just as I guess as a clarification, what additional information are we looking to need? This is the, I think, 4th time that Dennis has presented this to us. Maybe 5th, if we go all the way back. But what additional information so that an informed decision can be made?
I don't know what I don't know.
Well, and I was gonna ask, is there anything that the GEO could do for us that would tell, I mean, they could steer us in a direction? Like if we find something because of it that says, hey, this isn't gonna work here, that's something we can work with. Or, everything's fine, this is a great site. Can we have some elaboration on that, please?
Yeah, so that's why we start off with the MOU, because we could get a geotech back and find out that the whole piece of property we were planning on putting the solar is rock, and you don't know until you get that survey done. So we do have a preliminary site layout right now of where that 5 megawatts is going to go. But if the whole site is rocky, we're going to have to change our engineering. That could raise cost. So that's why Dennis is saying, this is very preliminary still, and we're going to have to come back to you with that final proposal. Here's what this looks like after that study has been done.
I see. And if we vote on this today in favor of it, how soon would actual work start on that kind of what you described?
Yeah, so our geotechs are out about 4 weeks right now. We have Baldwin scheduled for their second solar farm the first week in March, so I would say that's the earliest that we could get it scheduled, but we would like to, that's kind of the piece that holds up everything moving forward,
I
is
understand.
knowing what that looks like.
Well, and I think the geotech is important because if they do that and find out there's rock out there, because some of us are familiar, there is rock in that direction. And we've already eliminated all of the other possible areas for this array, then, we have an answer at that point.
Exactly. Yep.
So the MOU is really $15,000 of the research of the area,
Sorry.
correct?
Tom, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So the MOU today, if we voted on it today, that's only $15,000 for the research of the area.
That is correct.
Right.
And that's only if you don't move forward with the project. If, if you guys decide to continue moving forward, that's already factored into the cost, so.
Okay. I guess I'm okay with that.
Commissioners, how would you like to proceed?
Do we have a copy of the MOU, or has our city manager, our city attorney reviewed the MOU that has been suggested?
So Commissioners, Richard Neinstedt, City Manager. I was just getting ready to give you a suggestion. Since Mr. Tharp said we're not in a hurry-up deadline, I mean, we are, but we aren't. I think it is prudent, especially since I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be here in 8 years when we take ownership of this. I don't know how many of you will be. I just told the city attorney, I think she might be the only one in the room that will be here in 8 years. But I think it is prudent if next week you at least have the city attorney run through that MOU with you, and you have copies, and she can highlight to you and answer your questions on that MOU. And I have no concern about signing it, but I want you, as a governing body, committing to a number of years down the road to understand what's in there.
My only hesitancy was just that we hadn't seen the MOU, and that's fine. So I'm fine I'm fine with making the motion now. I'm also fine if we hold on to it until next week and review the MOU and anticipate to make the motion to move it forward then.
Yeah, and there is absolutely no problem with that. We can, the city manager will get the MOU in front of you before your next session, and there's no problem with that whatsoever.
I think that's a
I
great.
guess I would
great
ask the
suggestion.
question, have we answered the other questions? We've got a couple of folks that we are asking them to help answer these questions. They're making a trip down here to do so. I want to be cognizant of their time. And so I would like some direction as to whether you believe that they would need to be back, be with us on Zoom, or have we pretty much answered all of your other questions?
While I appreciate both Lindsay and Paul being present, and I invite them to come back as many times as they would like, I personally do not see that they need to be
Yeah.
in-house.
Okay.
I think they've done a great job answering the questions, and certainly if we have one that pops up, we could relay that to you and give it to them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I guess I
Okay.
still, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just still have, when I look at that borrowing rate at 2.5, and we don't know what it's gonna be, we don't know what's gonna be next month, the way things are going. I guess I'd kinda like to see you run through the numbers on a rate of like 4.5. Let's say if it goes up 2 points. I don't know, I kinda wanna know a little bit more about the what ifs, the worst case scenario, because I kinda doubt it's gonna be 2.5 in 7 years from now. I could be wrong, it may be lower. I hope it's lower, but we don't know. And if we could have some numbers run at a 4.5 rate, let's say, just see how much of an impact that would have on our cash flow.
Yeah. And I'm sure that we can do that. That's.
And you don't need to be here you can send that to us and we'll
Yeah,
take a look at it.
absolutely. We'll
So,
just get that in your packet so that you see those numbers.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Be great, okay, thank you.
That's
Great. I guess
easily
we'll
done.
get a copy of the MOU and go over it with the city council next Monday.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
both for coming.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That'll move us on to item 4. It's a resolution defining the depository institutions and the designated authority with Ms. Landis.
Hello, thank you. Excuse me. This is kind of a recurring resolution that might come in front of you every time we might have staff turnover, or those that are related to having the authority to make monetary transactions or large monetary transactions, such as opening new accounts, transferring large dollars, making wire requests, all of those types of transactions. We do in our city require that there are at least 2 signatures on those documents and or at least 2 approving authorities within our city, and we've designated typically 4 people who are capable of authorizing those transactions. And in our recent retirement, or with our recent retirement of our community development director, who was the fourth person on our list, we wanted to make sure that we were replacing her with someone also outside of the finance department so that we can ensure that we have the adequate checks and balances in place. So the 4 people that we're recommending and that are included in the resolution that's been presented to you are our city manager, myself, our human resources director, and our assistant finance director. And these people would be, like I said, responsible for any of those large or transactions that would cause question for in any of the accounts that we hold, whether it be depository accounts or investment accounts. And the reason we didn't go through and list all of the accounts this time for you is because some of those are ever changing as CDs mature, and we're bidding new rates and or moving those dollars around. We want to make sure that we weren't putting a list of those current accounts in here and then they might literally change this month later. So we did leave it kind of more wide open, and we did list for you the current depository institutions, although you'll notice in the memo it does say that it could be any depository institution within the city of Ottawa. That's also reflected in the resolution. So I would ask if you have any questions, and then we would ask that once you are able to, that we would move this ahead to a regular meeting agenda.
I was thinking Arvest Bank, do we not have some money there now, or are they no longer?
I'm sorry, I don't
Well, I
have
thi-
that list with me.
It appears that, there are a few banks there that are not listed, but there's kind of a catch-all statement within there that anybody who we have monetary funds with are covered.
Yes,
Under
that's
that's correct, because I too had that question, Commissioner Skidmore, because
All right,
I
we're good
agree,
there.
there's not every lending institution is listed there. It seems like that is in our,
No,
Is
they're
it not?
not. And these were only for our depository accounts, but we do have investment accounts with
Oh,
with
okay,
a
that's
large
right.
variety of,
I got you.
of banks across Ottawa.
All right, good, thanks.
is there, because there, Ms. Landis, we do right now only have 3 individuals because our community development director has recently exited the city establishment. Is there a rush to have this? I know you said you'd be okay with having it on the next agenda. I just wondered if it seemed to me that there were CDs that were coming due or had come, or just like this week maybe.
Yes, there are several in February, but we are able to at least only need 2 signers. So between myself and Mrs. McCurdy and our city manager, between the 3 of us, we've been able so far to be able to make those transactions we needed. So there really isn't a rush.
Okay.
At some future point, obviously, once we do, if you were to approve this, then we'll go through and redo the paperwork with each of those banks.
Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Landis? If not, how would you like to proceed?
I mean, I think we can certainly hold this over. However, I don't really think that we have an option, and not that it's a bad or a good thing. It's just we truly do need another individual on that list, and so I'd say move it on to our agenda.
Yep, I'm fine.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
That's what we'll do then.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Moves us on to comments by the city manager. None, thank you. Reports by city commissioners. Commissioner Graves.
I have no report.
Thank you. Commissioner Wygon.
I have no report.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaler.
None at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Skidmore.
No report.
Thank you. Report by the mayor, and I just got a little update on a couple things that we had taken care of the last few months. It's about the condemnations. We do these condemnations, and Commissioner Kaler always brings up, the fact that we hate spending tax dollars to do these condemnations that somebody else should be responsible for. Just to kind of update, everybody on where we're at with those. The last 2 packets that we received had a total of 11 properties. The city, let's see, we contracted out to have 2 of them torn down. Then we had 3 that were actually paid for on the first set. That would be our July 2021 group. We had 2 that were torn down, that were paid by tax dollars. We had 3 that were actually torn down by the property owners, so no tax dollars there. And then one of them was actually hired a contractor to renovate the structure. So that's good news there. And then on the last packet that we went through in September, we had 3 of them that were torn down by the property owners. We had 1 of them that's going to be renovated and 1 of them that's in the works right now to be renovated. So out of the 11 properties that we actually condemned, only 2 of them were paid for by tax dollars for tearing down. So that's great news. I'm glad that folks took on the responsibility that they're required to have in a sense to take responsibility for the things that they need to do for their property. So just a little update there. Thank you. That moves us on to the announcements. We have the commission retreat as soon as I bang the gavel on to spend some time with John tonight. February 14th, we have a study session at 4 o'clock here, and then the 16th, we have our joint luncheon with the city the city, county, and the school district. That'll be hosted by us here. Items already placed on the agenda. We have that public hearing for the floodplain regulation amendment on February 16th at 10 a.m. Anything else to come in front of the commission? If not, I will adjourn.